some news coming in from Fortis. In fact, there's the management of the company now joins us on the phone line. Mr. Bhavdeep Singh, CEO of Fortis Healthcare, is joining us. Mr. Singh, thank you so much indeed for joining us. Also with me is Yatin and Darshan from our research team. If I can just kick this conversation off, Mr. Singh, clearly there have been some reservations expressed by the auditors. If you could begin this conversation by telling us your response to what the auditors have said.
So good afternoon. Thank you very much. Look, I guess a couple of things I'd say about the audit. Number one is the accounts were signed. I think there was a lot of noise in the past about Deloitte not signing Q2, etc. We had delayed results for Q2 and Q3, but the results were signed. That's number one. Their concluding statement references the fact that there are two or three things that, in light of which, and the potential materiality of those 2-3 things, that because they don't know the impact of them, they cannot comment on the statements because of the potential impact. But having said that, they have signed the accounts, and I think that's an important statement, whereby we've been able to release our results. There is a company-initiated, a company-mandated investigation that's come through our audit committee that's been initiated. And in addition, as you're probably well aware, SEBI is also looking into the matter, and we believe that what the companies requested through the audit committee and SEBI, whatever investigation, whatever it might yield, we're certainly not only cooperative but very supportive of it, because we believe that anything we find which will help us become a better company and help us to do a better job is good for the organization, it's good for our patients, it's good for our employees, it's good for all of us. So I think where we are today is we look forward to the investigation being completed so we can close all the matters and move forward. We'll take it from there and we go back to focusing on our patients, which is what we do every day.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Singh. This is Darshan here. Just one query I'll take out from where Harsha left. In terms of this 473 crores, which SEBI is also investigating. So as per the audit report, I believe close to 70 crores of partial repayment has happened. What happens to the balance? When can we expect that to come in? And what are the modes in which this will be refunded back to the company?
You're breaking up badly, and I couldn't hear the last part of it. I did hear the first part. As has been shared in the past, we are working on a repayment plan that's been committed to us by the end of Q1. And at this point, we have no reason to think that it won't come in. So we certainly believe that it should be coming to us by the end of June.
Okay, but why was this done so late? Because the companies that were lent to initially, they were not subsidiaries, but then they became subsidiaries of the company. So in that case, why was this reported so late? Why was this not taken up earlier?
Look, there is, as has been mentioned, there was a change in the shareholding pattern of these entities. At which point in December, they became related parties. I think beyond that, quite honestly, look, there are a couple of investigations going on. I think they'll yield all the facts. Not a whole lot more that I can comment on it. I can tell you that as a matter of process, companies all over the world, good companies, very good companies, blue chip companies, at different times lend money to different places from an interest perspective or what have you. We did the same thing. There's some issue that potentially has come up. We have an investigation. We look forward to getting to the bottom of it. And in addition, we look forward to a full repayment plan by the end of the first quarter.
Okay, I take your point. I just want one query. In terms of these companies, what is the financial backing? What are the major assets that these companies have that, makes you confident that, this money will come in? And since now that the Singh brothers are no longer promoters, will there be additional pressure put on them to get this repayment done?
Look, anytime any organization lends money, whether forget about organization. If I lend money to a friend, and if I, the first thing I say is, does this individual have the ability to pay it? So there's a testing that's done. There's a routine testing that's done, and by basis which these loans were given. Now, as far as the Singh brothers, quite honestly, it's a question you'll have to ask them with respect to where they are and what they're doing. The assurances given to us has been that the funds will come back. And again, as I just mentioned earlier, we certainly expect that to be the case. But, anything from a Singh brother perspective, I think best to ask them those questions directly.
Okay. Bhavdeep, this is Yatin joining in the conversation. If you could, tell us now, since, a 3-member committee is running the company, and you have been talking about that there are potential 3-4 suitors who are looking at some kind of a strategic tie-up or, buying out the company. So is the committee now empowered to take decisions in terms of capital raising, in terms of roping in strategic players, or, probably looking at some merger or some kind of a equity transaction with, healthcare companies or private equity players? Have you already started engaging with, such parties?
Look, the committee that you're referencing is part of the board. Ultimately, the decision making for those types of things are a board, typically driven by board mandates, and so that's no different. I think the purpose of the committee is that in any organization where you have an executive chairman and there are executive responsibilities around it, it's those executive responsibilities that have been transferred to this committee, not the entire board mandate. So I would tell you that from any possible engagement with a potential investor, those discussions are continuing. Management plays a key role in that, determining what's right, and in great part, whatever ultimately is done by, in a case like this where we're thinking about what does the future look like and what kind of partnership do we have, management certainly would play a role in recommending or not recommending something. But the committee is the authority and responsibility of the executive chairman, which no longer exists. But beyond that, the board continues to perform the role that's always performed.
Okay. I also understand that the company is in a fairly liquid position to carry out its daily operations according to you in the analyst conference call. But, taking the question on the other side is, the transaction which RHT, you propose to buy out the remainder of the shareholding, which is close to 70%, if I'm not mistaken. So if you could tell us, will the capital requirement for Fortis come only because they are looking at acquiring the balance shareholding in RHT? Or would you think for a daily, day-to-day basis, or probably for working capital requirements also, there will be some, funding requirement? And also, if you could tell us, in terms of the cash outflow or the immediate money required to buy the balance shareholding in RHT, what kind of funds will you require?
That's a long one question, by the way. So let me break this up piece by piece. I think from an RHT perspective, there's good fundamental logic for what we're doing. There is a immediate impact to the P&L on an annualized basis of about 270-280 crore on an EBITDA line with respect to the positive impact once you acquire it. Now, having said that, funding perspective, as you rightly mentioned, we are looking at talking to different investors right now. It certainly makes the asset more desirable. I think as a standalone, not my opinion, by the way, but by virtue of what we continually hear, we are a very desirable asset. There's a tremendous amount of interest in Fortis, and people want to be affiliated and want to partner with us. Having said that, the RHT transaction, completing the transaction, certainly makes it all more appealing. Now, in the event, and I'm commenting on this just a bit more, expanding your question a bit, in the event that the transaction didn't take place for some reason, we certainly believe that we have, what we're finding is that because the level of interest is so high and the financial logic of the investment is so strong, that while the best way to do this would be through a potential investor coming in the event, hypothetically, if for some reason it didn't, we certainly believe that we can raise funding for it because the merit of it is so strong and because it drives additional cash flow and it helps us grow the business.
Bhavdeep, one quick question on the debt holders and bankers of RHT. What I can see from RHT's website is that there have been certain covenants which has been invoked by the lenders, because of the changes which happened in the shareholding of the parent, which is Fortis Healthcare. It dropped below the threshold 35%. So in that case, a lot of lenders can recall their debt. So is there any, notice, or is there any kind of communication which the trustee holders or the bankers of RHT have communicated to Fortis Healthcare? Because what I understand is there have been a lot of debt pending, and more importantly, there is a certain pending amount as trustee fees that you need to pay to RHT, which is again outstanding. So there are a lot of complexities between Fortis Healthcare and RHT and its debt holders. So if you could clarify as to what exactly is happening, and is the trustee manager and your company in touch with the bond holders and the bankers?
So look, there are, he said, by virtue of the shareholding pattern from promoter side, there are some things that crop up. There's nothing here that's material. There's nothing here that's going to impact the transaction. I think in terms of how they're looking at it and how it impacts them, I think it's really a question for them. But there's nothing that's been brought to our attention. There's been no further notices, anything. We are aware that certain things kick in by virtue of the shareholding change, but there's no impact, A, to the transaction, B, to the relationship, and C, what we do going forward. Now, if there's any static on their side, probably a question better for them to answer, but we don't see anything there. We see this whole RHT piece as a huge piece of our success story going forward. The RHT structure was set up at a time when the expectation was that we would be growing by this much, we'd be international, national, the whole bit. Quite honestly, right now it's more like a big ball around our neck right now, and the quicker we can get rid of it, the sooner we can start running.
I just have one question on RHT in terms of the shareholding pattern. You own close to 29% stake. Who are the major other shareholders, and do the Singh brothers own any personal stake in RHT?
Negligible. The Singh brothers holding, if it is, and I don't know, but my comment would be, if it is, it's negligible. But quite honestly, beyond that, from a shareholding pattern, वो तो उनको पूछना पड़ेगा. You'll have to check with them. I think that I imagine it's readily available. I'm sure you guys can find it.
So the money that Fortis will pay up for RHT, who exactly will get it? Who are the large shareholders who will get this money?
Again, I think if you can, this is not information that I have at my disposal, but again, I'm sure it's readily available. And talk to me about Fortis. I hopefully have a lot of answers. RHT, उनके साथ ही बात करनी पड़ेगी.
One final question from my side. Since there is a sunset date which is set for buying out the remainder holding of RHT, in terms of funding, if you pass all the resolution, it will take 6 to 8 months. So, do you think if any strategic shareholder comes in or any strategic investor comes in, the transaction possibly could happen within 1 month, since you are in urgent need of funds to probably look at the balance holding of RHT?
So one is, we're not in urgent need of funds. We any good business does. I think that if an investor comes in, could the transaction happen sooner? Yes. Could it happen in a month? Highly unlikely. But it could, yeah. I mean, could it happen sooner? Sure, it could. But I don't see. I don't see myself having a call with you in 4 weeks to talk about the completion of the transaction.
Thanks, Bhavdeep, for taking out the time and speaking to Bloomberg.
Thank you very much. Thank you, folks. Bye bye.
All right, that was Bhavdeep Singh from Fortis Healthcare, sort of allaying concerns on the market. Well, several questions remain unanswered. Yatin, Darshan.
I think we had to ask more, but I think he was in a rush to. But I think he didn't answer much on RHT. And he's right, because he doesn't. They are the majority shareholders. But in terms of, we try to get out whether the Singh brothers will get any money out of this, whether this is a way to get the money into them, because they also have this legal case. So that was not known, and he's made it clear that he's in talks with some parties. So I think despite negative numbers coming in, I think you can see the stock has not fallen, because that M&A ball game will always keep on being, and he's told it. So it's not something that we are seeing from source. I think he spoke to Bloomberg also. You can check the flashes. 3 to 4 parties are interested. So it'll get interesting. So in the next 4 weeks, nothing will happen as per him, but certainly something can definitely happen.
Thanks, guys.